when the foreign artists come down, everybody seems to know what to do. They know how to treat them. They know what's required for these artists. But when it comes to local artists, all of a sudden, people want to skip steps.
You can put a cast of the best local artists on, and then it'll be a struggle to fill a medium-sized venue.
You know, you will see the support, you'll see people following these artists and I love my artists, but when it comes to really supporting and doing what they, you know, helping out and coming to the shows and maybe buying merch and, you know, streaming the music, it's just not there.
But the average artist who sings that doesn't want to go and work in the bank, can they make a living from singing?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of the Game Changers podcast. My name is Quinn Segis, and it's a privilege and pleasure to be here with you as usual. Like I said, this is a special episode of the Game Changers podcast. We're speaking about St. Lucian creatives. This is a Caribbean-wide podcast, but today I'm really focusing on St. Lucia, the development of St. Lucia creativity, and maybe we just might get a little bit political today. Who knows, right? Today, we have some interesting guests here with us. I'll allow them to introduce themselves. First and foremost, we want to speak to the man himself, no stranger. I think that's the guy who has appeared on Game Changers the most.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, nice to be here again, Game Changers podcast. It's your boy Ryan, also known as Action Time, also known as Go Hard or Go Home, also known as a lot of things. So yeah, thanks for having me again.
All right. And then?
Yo, Deepa. Sidil Sime, soca artist, event producer. And I'm happy to be on Game Changers. Oh, you have to tell them you're a Grenadian too.
All right. And we have a guest virtually as well. So can you introduce yourself to my audience?
Yeah, Lyndale James, aka Oak Trees, event production specialist, and I'll soon do a song with Sidale. Maybe we'll release it in 2026.
And also known as the one that tried to kill me on stage. Eh?
Oh, yeah, that's not rehash.
Don't people uncles.
All issues, guys. All right. So, like I said, I'm very happy to have all of you here. Let's get straight into the conversation, man. We don't want to take too much time. What is the biggest structural barrier, in your opinion, Asadu Sidil, that you think is preventing St. Lucian creatives from thriving? I mean, we know we have so many talented individuals. We have talented individuals in this room and virtually. We have talented individuals across St. Lucia, but something seems to be holding back St. Lucian creatives. What is it?
Well, my uncle Linus always taught me, before you point the finger at anybody, you have to point the finger at yourself.
That's very interesting.
So one of the issues I think we have is the artists themselves.
Okay.
And by that, I mean, you have a lot of situations where artists don't educate themselves on their own business.
Yeah.
And I think that's a major issue. Wow. You cannot be in something and not know the ins and outs of it. I'll give you an example. For instance, we had an ECHO general meeting, and you find in these meetings, the guys are always disgruntled for a number of reasons. But this one particular artist had walked in and he was upset. And I asked him, why are you upset? He said, because my song on YouTube has 5,000 views and ECHO gave me nothing, no royalties.
Well.
So I look at him and I tell him, you know, ECHO doesn't pay royalties for YouTube. You check? And for those who don't know, ECHO pays mechanical royalties. So that's live performances, radio, TV.
That's correct. Yeah.
YouTube is a whole different game. So already that said to me, you coming into the situation upset, and you're not even upset at the correct people.
Right.
For the right reasons.
Right. Yeah. And that's a major issue. I think we as creatives, we have to be able to know about our business And when you don't know about your business, that's when people can take advantage of you.
Interesting.
So I think that is one of the major issues that we're facing. If I have to say any issue outside of that, there's a plethora of things. I think one, I think there is a lack of respect for artists and creatives in cinema.
Wow, respect from who? Let's put it on maybe somebody, because you often we say respect or something like that, but we don't focus on who. Is it general in society, or do you think it's a lack of respect from somebody in particular?
I don't think society on a whole does not respect us.
Okay.
I think we get love, especially from the people. We get a lot of love. I can say coming into the soca industry from young, you would see the disrespect in terms of how we were treated,
Wow.
in terms of compensation, and then you would say maybe, okay, these promoters simply don't know, the proper procedure. But then you see an artist from overseas come to St. Lucia, and the artist gets that level of respect that you're looking for. Now, understand, we're not saying that you have to treat us like Marshall Montano.
Okay.
But there are fundamental things that, we require when we come to an event. For instance, you might come to an event and you don't even have somewhere to sit. You don't have a bottle of water before you go on stage. And
That's still going on?
well, I will say it doesn't go on as much. And I'm happy to say that, actually.
Okay.
Promoters have now understood that you have to cater to artists backstage and whatnot. Even something like parking. Can you imagine you go into a show and you don't even have designated parking for you? You have to park and walk. You park by the road and then walk to the venue.
As the guest star.
Right, as somebody who's performing. And all of these things, as trivial as it may seem, these things are important, and these things are standard procedure when you have events. And the thing about me, I can talk from both perspectives because I'm an event producer and I'm an artist. So I see it from both sides. So you have things like that. Like I said, compensation. I can tell you, one time I was on a show and I was asking, Oak Trees, you was part of that too. Oak Trees, you was part of that. As I saying that, I was part of a show, and I remember saying that, we needed a sound check. And again, sound check is something that is standard. You know what they tell me? Why I want a sound check? When everybody else is getting a sound check.
Were you with a band or on playback?
I was with a band.
Yeah, so the band needs a sound check. You don't need a sound check.
I need a sound check too because I'm performing.
No, you need a rehearsal with the band.
No. I need a rehearsal and I need a sound check because here's what happens.
So ideally, you can get a sound check within the limitations of what the event provides. So, for instance, if we don't have a lot of time, the band would do a sound check. And what I would do, let's say, for instance, you have DYP and DYP has 7 artists, right, on their set with them. I would not be able to sound check 7 artists.
Why?
So what I would ask them, because of time.
Make time. Because you want
No, you cannot make time. So here's what happens, and you know that. In the environment in St. Lucia, you have a production team that comes to set up in the morning maybe or the day before. They work the entire day, sound check the entire day, and run an event. They're not sharp for the event. They're tired.
Okay.
You understand?
I don't care about that.
Sound checking is for the artist to be able to understand the environment. And to be fair, the stages we have in St. Lucia, the way the sound is set up, it is not that unique. It's either you understand the environment that you're in, which I think a professional artist could have the band playing and walk around the stage and get a feel for what it sounds like, and not necessarily sound check.
Trees, respectfully.
I'm not even going to debate that, but I'm saying that
no, I want to debate that because that's part of the problem.
I remember, I think Kes came down here and he didn't sound check the band sound check and he wasn't even there.
Yeah, you don't need because you understand the environment already.
No. That's different. So let me start
It's
pointing out
okay.
the differences. Kes and them working with their engineer who is familiar with what they want. They've done 100 shows a year, so the engineer understands what Kes requires.
In terms of what? In terms of what? In terms of
I'm happy you brought that up. I'm happy you brought that up because that is the mentality that we have here sometimes.
Hold on,
Trees. Hold on.
Be
Here's
clear.
the
Be clear.
thing.
He knows what he wants in terms of what.
He knows what he wants in terms of how he wants to hear himself in the monitors, how high he wants his mic. His engineer knows that, and that's why you have your personal engineer.
So basically, I am seeing, and based on what CDL is saying, and based on the debate, is that there should be standards that should be embraced across the board. Because if the standards were embraced across the board, then I think everybody would have an understanding of what is required for everybody. Because I mean we're in this debate, and I think that might be one of the core issues. And I think that's what you brought up a while ago. Because if we do not know what the standards are,
we cannot adhere to them. And here's the thing, Trees, going back to your point. The reason why I say it is necessary for us to have these sound checks, again, it lends to the lack of respect because they feel like, that's just CDL. He'll figure it out. You check?
No, that's not what it is.
And we hear, hold on. We hear this all the time. We don't have time. My brother, if it was a foreign artist, y'all making the time because here's what? It is contractually agreed to for us to have a sound check. You understand? Now, here's where things get interesting.
How you say
hold on, Trees. Here's where things get interesting.
Political season.
The fact that we do it so much, we don't have a sound check and we can go on stage and still do the job at a high level. People think them man don't need no sound check. But it is something that is standard.
So you're saying you're so talented that well, I'm not saying that sound check doesn't matter,
no,
but I'm saying that.
Let me explain something, Quinn, and let's be very clear, right? The sound, and I'll try to make it as clear and simple as possible. The sound that the crowd hears out in the audience will be very different to what happens on stage. On stage, you have a number of monitors. You have side fields, and I'm kind of describing them for you. So you have monitors in front of the stage. You have side fields on the side, and each of the musicians usually have a monitor for themselves. Each of the musicians required to hear certain things in their monitors to help them play their instrument. The artists, usually, if you have a main artist with a band, they may tell you, like a performing artist like Marshall come with his band, like they'll say a foreign band. Kes comes with his band. They want to hear specific things in their monitors. When you have an artist or artists who are performing with one band, usually you have just one mix for the lead mic in these monitors. So what the artist number 1 will hear is what artist number 2 will hear, what artist number 3 will hear. So it would not necessarily change. You're not going to, unless CDL has a very specific thing with him, they're just going to adjust the gains. They're not going to give CDL a specific mix for his mic when he come in and perform just 2 songs, and then that mic is going to change to another artist. You understand? That is quite complicated for a band set where an artist is only going to come on for 5 to 7 minutes. So literally, the environment dictates that the mix that these artists will get would probably be the same for all of them. And then it becomes their singing ability that they would actually be able to know what they're hearing in the monitors. Usually the band themselves, the musicians, they're the ones who will be getting specific mixes in their monitors, if that makes sense.
Let's then move on to solutions, because obviously, there's a challenge here in the industry. So, and I want to hear from all 3 of you in this perspective before we go to break and bring on our another guest to join this conversation. What do you think specifically needs to change so that there's a standard in the industry so that everybody knows specifically what is required? I'll start with Orion on this one.
Okay. Boy, I think you shall go.
Okay, he gives Octris the mic. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I will go back to the first question you
Yeah,
asked.
because we have finished that question.
In terms of challenges, and that's where I will come in on the point that I think is most important. Creative industries need structure, right? Creative industries, I think, to a certain extent, I wouldn't use the word CDL use as being considered a whipping boy or being disrespected by a lot of entities in society. I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of ignorance when it comes to the creative industries. And because of that, that causes the difficulties that you see happening. Now, one of the main points I've been pushing for quite some time is having a creative industries policy, a public-facing policy as a government. It doesn't matter which party is there, right? The government should have a creative industries policy that dictates how it invests its money. So, for instance, having some kind of structure when it comes to festivals or when it comes to bands. I mean, I could tell you that there are a lot of times I've been at events and a local band would come and sound check. I mean, I'm going back on that, and the musicians pretty much have the mix like it's a disco. If I go to a stage, an international stage, and a band is there, you'd walk up and down the stage, and you're hearing a different sound in each monitor all the time. You pretty much not even knowing what song is playing because it's all different mixes. The problems that we have to be gathered and structured so that if we know how the creative industries is being invested in by government, people can now decide, well, I will go and educate myself, or I will invest in equipment and these kind of things. Without a structure, everybody's like vitae. They don't really have any kind of method to understand. So bands will not necessarily know what is the quorum for a festival. How do they prepare a rider? How do they contract their requirements and say, well, I need a sound check, like Cedil is saying. If you put it in your rider that you need to have a 15-minute sound check and these kind of things, maybe these things will be happening. But if it's left up to, say, the promoter or the producer, then they're probably going to be dealing with different things as opposed to what they think is not necessary. It's about prioritizing things. And I think the main element is that without that kind of creative industries public-facing policy, you have people are not focused on anything in particular. And it creates a lot of chaos, you know?
Yeah, well, I agree with what you say, and that brings back to Cyril point, educating ourselves. I think if we have that policy, we will be educated and know how to go about doing things. So I agree with that. Yeah,
Absolutely, Cyril.
Policy, yes, I agree with that. Piggybacking on the previous question though, and this is how it connects.
Yes, we have to connect everything.
Without even a policy, we have to understand in the creative industry. So let's use music for instance. All of us are working together to put together, let's say, a show. So there are different elements that make a show. Sound and the entertainment is a big part of it. So if I am booked as an artist and I am a professional artist and I am required to do my job at the highest ability, I require certain things in order to do the job.
And that's fair.
And sound check is one of them, right? Now, outside of a policy, again, I say we're working together. So help me help you. Because as a promoter, you booking me for a show. I want to put on a good performance and I want your show to look good.
And obviously, I want my show to look good as well. Yeah.
So think about it. I've been in many situations where I have not gotten a sound check. And when you get on the stage, you now have to figure out which monitor you hearing yourself best from. The side fees may be too loud, it may be too low. You have to figure that out while you sing into the crowd. And a lot of people sometimes don't understand. While we're on stage, we're processing. While we're entertaining, we're processing. Now, I feel like sometimes people diminish the value of that because a lot of times we make it work, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's right. Now, you spoke about ignorance, Oak Trees, and I think ignorance is an excuse. You know why I say that? Because again, when the foreign artists come down, everybody seems to know what to do. They know how to treat them. They know what's required for these artists. But when it comes to local artists, all of a sudden, people want to skip steps. So that is why I say there's a lack of respect. That's what respect is. If you respect me, then you understand that, hey, he has this in his contract, he needs that. Adhere to the contract. Now, here's the other thing. Sometimes when you put it in your contract, people put up there and like, why you have to put that in your contract? Why you want to, basically they're saying, why you want to be professional? And that's the message I get. Why do you want to be professional? What you mean? This is my job, this is my work. In order for me to give you this great performance, this is what I need and I have it laid out in my contract. And I've had this issue before where it's in my contract. And you see what Oak Tree said there? You don't need a sound check. He was the stage manager and he said that to me.
I'm pretty sure. So I'm pretty sure you didn't have a contract back then.
I had a contract. What are you talking about?
Nah. That's lies. That's lies. You were performing, as a matter of fact, you were performing with DYP, right? And DYP is the one who said who the artists were. DYP had a sound check. And what I did not say you're not doing a sound check. Huh? I told DYP you have a 20-minute sound check and DYP can choose who they want to sound check because I did not book artists.
But okay, but I'm not dealing with DYP.
You had to agree with your band.
I'm dealing with the promoter.
Sound check, not me.
I'm not dealing with DYP. I'm dealing with the promoter. And I give the promoter a contract saying I require a sound check. So the promoter has to now communicate that to DYP. You understand?
Yeah, that's a gray area. That's a gray area. But I'll ask you one question, Sidil.
Tell me.
Do you need to sing to have a successful sound check?
Do I need to sing to have a successful sound check?
Yeah.
As in to sing out a whole song?
No. So for instance, if another artist is sound checking, do you need to sing for you to have a sound check?
Another artist has different preferences than me.
That's what I'm saying. Do you need to sound check?
I don't need to, but I would like to sound check because it will help my case later in the night when I have to sing.
Yeah.
No, if it's in my contract, I need to.
Here's the thing, yeah. Here's the thing. I come from an ilk where one of my biggest steps in production was learning through some of the best producers during jazz. And one of the rules we had was that we make a point of taking very, very good care of local artists compared to international artists. And that's something I've maintained throughout. The times that, Sidil, you have seen me be tough on local artists, it is because of time restraints.
True.
Sometimes artists are late, bands are late, a lot of things that disrespect time. And as a result of that, if one artist affects the other, when you have sets, and that's a rule I had from day one, I only give a time check for a band. If the band wants to bring in 500 artists, as long as they can fit in that 20 minutes or that 30 minutes that I give them, I don't care. The choice of who they sound check, usually the band takes artists from different ranges of their voice.
I understand that, Trees. I get that.
So you coming in a bit disingenuous there, saying about your contract and whatever. Because
how is that being disingenuous?
Guys, hold that thought. We have to go to break.
As a stage manager,
yes, hold that thought. We have to go to break. It is clear that it.
I think I needed to be in that studio. You know.
But we will come back, right?
This ad slot could be yours. In a world filled with stories, make yours resonate. Introducing Prime ad slots on our podcast, the gateway to a captive audience eager to hear your message. Secure your exclusive ad slot now. Contact via our Instagram page to find out more. This ad slot could be yours. In a world filled with stories, make yours resonate. Introducing prime ad slots on our podcast, the gateway to a captive audience eager to hear your message. Secure your exclusive ad slot now. Contact via our Instagram page to find out more. This ad slot could be yours. In a world filled with stories, make yours resonate. Introducing prime ad slots on our podcast, the gateway to a captive audience eager to hear your message. Secure your exclusive ad slot now. Contact via our Instagram page to find out more.
Welcome back to the Game Changers podcast. If you watched the first up and you are as entertained as me, then you know we have had a heated conversation so far. A necessary conversation for sure, but a heated conversation nonetheless. And it's a conversation that needs to be had among the industry, individuals, in the creative industries in general. But this time, we were largely focusing on the musicians, but we're also focusing on other individuals. Before we went to break, we had a conversation between Seedale and Oak Trees. But before we get back into that briefly, we have a new guest amongst us. So can you introduce yourself to my audience?
Good evening, your audience. My name is Michael Esnad. I am co-founder of Soca the Ultimate Tent. I also work with Island Sounds.
Okay.
So I was raised in and around music, both sides of the production, and with DJs and with bands. So I have a little mix of a lot.
Okay, so having said that, I want you to chime in on the question, because you were backstage, you were listening to what was going on. So just chime in on the question that I asked. What do you believe that there are challenges in the industry, and what exactly do you think is the main challenge that needs to be fixed structurally?
Yes, there will always be challenges. Whether you fix some or not, there will always be challenges.
Yeah.
There is no main problem. Everything is a problem. So sometimes it's a lot of small problems which creates a major problem, just like sound. You may have a bad lead, a bad output, a bad musician, and then when you put all of these things together, what comes out of your speaker, what everybody hears is, just bad sound. And they may say the sound company is not good.
Right.
Where really actually the keyboard player, keyboard is not good, or the keyboard player not good, So sometimes it's a lot of small things which come together to create a big problem. If we're speaking about the music industry in St. Lucia, I believe one of our problems one of the problems we need to challenge first is the patriotism of the locals.
Okay, interesting.
I see we getting there, or we're making steps, to be in St. Lucian, or to feel in the St. Lucian pride. And when I say that, just not only to say I'm a St. Lucian, and then when you have to do for your country, stand by your country, assist your country, that you do not show up. But I think we're making steps. One of the examples that I always use is a lot of time when we're in a foreign land and, you try to promote a St. Lucian event, you will hear some of the people saying things like, I don't mess with the St. Lucian crowd, I don't mess with the St. Lucian people. People like C, they will tell you, if you can put a cast of the best local artists on, and then it'll be a struggle to fill a medium-sized venue.
Wow.
Bring in one foreign artist, and you do half of the work, and you get massive numbers. And so I just think it boils down to us being patriotic and supporting each other in whatever that we do.
All right, so we want to talk about that point that he brought up, and I think it might tie into all that we're speaking about here already. In terms of the patriotism and the support for each other, the support for each other across the industry. So Seedale supporting Oak Trees, and Oak Trees supporting Seedale, and across the board. Is that lacking in the industry? I'll start with the guys in the room, and then I'll go to my virtual guest. Is that lacking? and what needs to be fixed? Let's start with Orion on this one.
Yeah, I believe it's lacking. I think, like Michael said, we're not patriotic and enough.
Yeah.
We're not patriotic enough, and I think I'm as much as he said. I've witnessed it. You put the best local cast on, and it's a struggle. And for me, I remember Esteban told me that same point, and I trying to figure out to myself, but why? You will see the support, you'll see people following these artists, and I love my artists, but when it comes to really supporting and doing what they, helping out and coming to the shows and maybe buying merch and streaming the music, it's just not there. And I myself don't even know why. I don't know if that's a solution mentality or, who do you think you are kind of thing. Maybe you grew up with somebody, like, that's just somebody, so it's like, it's whatever, so I do not know. And I remember he told me he went to Dominica and it was the total opposite. Dominicans patriotic. You understand? They support their own. So as for why we do it here, I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's hear from you, Cedil. What are your thoughts on it? I think that's a trend, and I'm almost certain that you'll agree with what has been said so far.
Yeah, I do feel so sometimes that we are conveniently patriotic.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I think that sometimes we tend to support people after they've achieved a bunch of stuff. Now it's trendy or cool to support that person. In St. Lucia, I cannot tell you why. I do believe some of the points Orion said, where maybe people are just so familiar with you, they don't look at you as an artist.
Yeah.
They just look at you as Cedil or Orion. So that may play a part as well. But we have other islands where the artists are supported fully. I personally went to Dominica for Creole Fest last year and for Carnival this year. And the support is there. It took me a week to hear a foreign song in Dominica. And when I say Dominicans patriotic and they love their music, I end up pulling up on a block, BFV and Egg, and what they listening to, Booyah. Tell me what block in St. Lucia you'll go to and they're listening to our music. To show you that the people, they really love their culture, they love their music. And sometimes it can be disheartening. Even for the last, year or two with our music for Carnival, you get a lot of people coming up to you. That's all you job for this season. And this is not only me saying this. A lot of artists I speak to, they say this. They're like, yo, what you drop for this year? And I dropped like 9 songs this year and people don't know the music. And that in itself, I have my theory as to why that is.
I'll get to that in a little while.
Right. But generally speaking, I think the support can be more.
Yeah. And to add to what Cedil said, I do concert type events with local artists for the last 8 years, I think. And sometimes I go through an entire season exhausting all forms of promo that I can. And then people will still tell me, boy, I never heard of that event. I didn't know you had that event. Or, hey, that was last night. Or, hey, that's tomorrow. Right. And then you on radio, TV, social media, you on artist profile. You exhaust all sorts of forms of advertisement, let's just say. And then people will still play, a blind eye or deaf ear. One time I told somebody told me like they didn't know I had some event. Like, sorry to say, I show you guys a DP, you'd see it. But an event that I put in on, you wouldn't see, So it's just what people want to see or what they want to support.
Interesting. Let's say from Oak Trees, man. I know you're not in St. Lucia currently, but you know the St. Lucia music scene. Is there an issue with supporting artists? And let's broaden it. I mean, speaking to mainly musicians and people within the music space, but let's broaden it to creatives. Is there a lack of support for St. Lucian creatives?
That's a real tough one, and I don't know. Like a lot of things, we're limited with time. I'll say that it's perspective. I'll also say that I do a lot of events all around, and you'd be surprised that the same cry artists are saying in St. Lucia, the same thing they'll be saying in Grenada, same thing they'll be saying in Dominica, etc., etc. That being said, I like to take things on a positive angle, and I have seen in the industry in St. Lucia that our local artists have gone from being sidelined to being some of the main attractions in FET. So, for instance, I think I would be very correct in saying you really can't have a successful event if you don't have certain local artists on your card. And once upon a time, that was not the case. So I like to think of it as we have a young country. We're still learning a lot about the business of events and the creative industries. And I think a lot of the limitations we have is because of investment and money. If artists were to be able to sustain themselves, well, when I say if artists, some artists do, but if the majority of artists could see their profession or their talent as something that can actually benefit them financially, you might find them doing a lot more. You might also find them being a lot more subscribed by persons. So their talent grows, their notoriety grows, the industry grows. I think a lot of times that limitation, where artists are only, or soca artists, for instance, are only hot for 3 months, is one of the things that kind of limits the general public to what they do and to knowing them and to being with them. But I could tell you, when they're hot, people support them, and that's the same in a lot of different jurisdictions. That's not unique to St. Lucia. That being said, I think artists would take it a lot more personal because, like Cedel is saying, he did 9 songs, and nobody's paying attention, and they tell you, but I even heard none of your songs, whatever. His perspective will be very different to somebody else. But that is such an intertwined, complex thing. You have radios, you have Michael talk about he going on profiles and social media, whatever, and promoting and marketing. It's about the industry not being developed in a way that you can actually make it work properly. Like have a minimum standard to say when you do an event, you need to promote it for 3 months, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and you're definitely going to get 3,000 people at your event. That's not how it works in St. Lucia. It could be a numbers game also. We may not have a big enough population to actually make it financially feasible, which is where the public-facing creative industry policy comes in, because there needs to be a certain kind of investment in certain parts of creative industries to make it work,
Interesting. Very interesting. Now, there's a reason why we're doing this thing, this podcast rather, in this season. We have a general election coming up. And yes, I said we were going to go there, so we're going to go there. The next government, whoever forms the next government, what would you like to see creatives get from that government in terms of support? Because most of the individuals here have said lack of support. Oak Trees kind of chimed in, but he said that it's not unique to St. Lucia. So what does St. Lucian musicians, and we're not just talking about soca artists and calypso artists and artists that focus on the carnival season, or maybe within the jazz season as well. Wait, let's go outside of it. Let's go to creatives. What support do St. Lucian creatives need in order to shine? Let's start with Oak Trees again. Go ahead and chime in.
Well, I will start by saying creative industries has become a catchphrase and people don't really understand it. It can be quite complex, and while it's not rocket science, it is a science. The government has, civil service, for instance, have a number of smart, educated number crunchers, professionals who can be part of the support system for the creative industries so that we can actually grow the industry. The structures are not really there, and you have many persons who have studied, many organizations. Since 2012, we've had a symposium on creative industries, and nothing has come up. Well, I lied. I think out of it, the events company of St. Lucia was one of the things that they suggested. It may not be working the way it's supposed to, but there have been certain things that have been put into place. The bottom line is that without a public facing policy, everybody just thinks that their particular industry or their particular problem is the biggest thing. And they will see the positives, they will see where they need help, etc. Government has a limited amount of funding. And like you say, it's election season. What I would want to see is that a government representative or a party would say, for the creative industries for the next 5 years, we believe based on research and statistics that cuisine or art or writing or singing is the way to go for the next 5 years because it has a good return on investment, it has good growth and development, it has the ability to support our GDP, and with that, we're going to put X amount of money towards that particular industry. We're going to look at education, we're going to look at training, etc., etc., etc. I think that's one of the major things that needs to happen. With that, then a particular creative can say, well, okay, they're going to be investing in training. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to save my money and do that because I know I'm going to get that return. And then you will see tremendous growth in the industry. Without a policy, it's just vitae. The next hottest thing is what people going to just jump. And then you see they jumping on Denry segment. Then you see they jumping on Julian Alfred. Then you see they jumping on all different things in the creative industries. But there's no real focus. And sometimes it can be a waste of money. Sometimes it works. But there's no real structure so we can actually know. And I'll just add that we've seen the success of in St. Lucia's tourism industry because you have bodies like St. Lucia Tourism Authority. It was Tourist Board before. They gather data. They build strategic relationships. And because of that, they've actually been one of the better areas where we've seen growth in our economy. So you kind of have to have a few people. Let the artists do their thing, but you have to have a support system, legal, financial, etc., that actually understands the industry and puts in the business sense behind it actually growing and practitioners making a living out of it.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Orion next.
Where
does this support have to come from? Or what can a government in particularly do?
Bro, I agree with everything Oak Trees just said there. I think, valid points. His points, I couldn't say it any better. I think for me, we need structure. We need these policies. We need everything is just chaos. So we need somebody to come and, like he said, focus on what's important to get us where we need to get in the areas that we need to get for there. So yeah,
got you.
Well, one of the things I wanted to say to Orion's last statement is that in addition to that, they need to communicate because we're not stupid and we know government is limited with finance. But if we know that government is going to say, well, we're going to be focusing on sculptors for the next 2 years, then artists not going to be frustrated and say, gosh, why they don't give me that? They know that for the first 2 years is sculptors, they're going to be focusing on whatever. Then they're going to be focusing on building studios. Then they're going to be focusing on building venues and that kind of thing. Have a plan that the public knows this is what we're going to try. I mean, maybe they'll fail, but at least we know that there's some kind of plan going forward. Not that Sidale did a hot song. Also, we'll just make Sidale an ambassador and send him to Carifesta or some shit like that. And nobody knows. So what did Sidale do to get him to actually do that? There's no structure. There's no plan. There's no do this and do that and do that, and you get this. And then the other thing I think we need to be careful with the industry is that you have that stardom mindset where everybody's looking to be a star, right? As opposed to what creative industries is supposed to be. Creative industries, on a basic sense, is about making a practitioner understand that they can actually earn a living from their talent. They don't have to be the next Rihanna. An artist or a singer can be doing voiceovers or doing ads or doing whatever, but they can feed their family, they can pay their rent, they can buy a car, they can go and do have a holiday once a year, that kind of a vibe. Everybody doesn't need to be the best at what they're doing. That will set Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that will define itself. Julian Alfred going to define herself no matter what. Nobody going to stop her. Cedale is going to be a star no matter what. Nobody going to stop him. But the average artist who sings that doesn't want to go and work in the bank, can they make a living from singing? And that's what creative industries need to establish. They need to establish that benchmark that when a student falls out of secondary school and boy, they get no CXCs and whatever, can they make a living do sculpting or write or singing or dancing? These kind of elements that they have a talent for, that's not a traditional career. Is that an area that you can say, well, let me go and try and do that because I can make a living from it?
Right.
That's what creative industries need to be able to establish so they know that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good.
Absolutely. I want to talk. Maybe we can move on to.
If I was supposed to answer that same question
Okay.
for the polling for the parties, you see the same way during election time they go door to door, house to house to find out what are the problems in the community, what are the problems in the sector, what are the problems in St. Lucia. Then they use it to put into the manifesto to say that's what we're going to correct. I feel they can do the same thing
To the creatives. Interesting.
But now what's the problem? What we think we can do?
Yeah.
And again, like Okshi said, don't try to do it TV or carnival club. So let's try and do a quick meeting and let's do a quick meeting, see what some of them have to say, and shut them up 20 minutes later and say, all right, we have enough. And then we move on and say that, yeah, we had a meeting with you. And I've always said, like, for me, too, carnival is supposed to be a year-round per. You go for your carnival season, you do your postmortem, you see what you're gonna take that food, you discard what's bad, and then you start to prepare for the next carnival season.
Yep.
Months in advance, not 3 weeks before, 2 months before, but at least 6 months in advance.
I want to chime
Because you see
that a bit too. So I want to start with the positives first.
Yeah, cool.
I do think the current administration, they have made strides in trying to develop the creative industries. So, for instance, with Carnival now emerging as the premier cultural activity in St. Lucia, I think they have taken a lot of the initiative to promote Carnival, promote the artists as well. So, for instance, when I traveled in Dominica, especially, I got this. The artists were so impressed with how we were moving in Miami because the government had sent us to Miami to promote St. Lucia Carnival, promote the music and whatnot. And we had gone to multiple events, performed, social media, it was being posted. So it made a good impression to the point where we are being discussed in different conversations as being the gold standard in promoting a carnival. We were made ambassadors as well. Something I think that's important because the artists, and I will give special mention to the Denry segment artists because the Denry segment is what really popularized St. Lucia Carnival, and they gave us an identity musically. And because of them, a lot of people started flocking to St. Lucia. So the government, they recognize that and they leverage that in order to promote the carnival. So I think that is something that was well done. However, I do think things can be improved on. To Oaktrey's point, there needs to be structure. And sometimes I feel like there's not enough structure and there's not enough dialogue between the creatives and the people who actually make the decisions for the creatives. So if this is who feels it knows, this is our business. Who would know better than anybody else what the struggles are, what are the challenges, but the creatives. So sometimes I feel like decisions are made on our behalf and then we are informed after the fact. And I think that is a bad practice. We need to have dialogue. People need to understand what the challenges are from us. We need to understand the challenges from a government point of view as well. So with that being said, I do think we are making strides in the right direction, but we just need to tighten it up and improve on it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Guys, We have quickly run out of time, and this is only the beginning of things. We have to do a part 2. Like, we kind of have to do a part 2. The conversation has been too good. But at this point, I want to call on the government officials or the individuals who want to form the next government. The part of the reason that we did this here is to have a conversation directly with you guys. What do you plan for the next administration that you plan on forming for the creatives? I'm willing to speak to anybody on a live, whether it be the leader of the current opposition or the leader of the current government, or each party could send a possible leader of a creative sector to have a conversation with me. Let the creatives know what you plan for them. Anyhow, this has been yet another episode of the Game Changers podcast. And to thank my guests for coming on. I want to thank you all for having a heated but inspiring conversation. We are not done yet, as I said. We must have another conversation in that regard, and I will definitely reach out to you guys. It is coming soon, so I look forward to it. Thank you for coming, guys.
Hey, when you bring the politicians on, make sure we're there.
For sure. I would need you all to share the live, so and be there to comment underneath it. All right, to ask the questions. All right.
No, not hard questions. Easy question. But bottom line, I feel the content has to be set
That's the
down
question. All right.
Before December 1st, one representative from each of the parties need to come and sit down on this podcast, Game Changers, and have a discussion about creative industry.
Absolutely.
Of course, no change.
I agree with that 100%. Anyhow, guys, this has been yet another episode. Thank you for coming on, and until next time, stay hungry, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.